We'll begin our meeting with Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Chaves, after which Councilman Bringhurst will offer our opening prayer.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, thank you so much for all that was done for us, for this wonderful day and the beauty that surrounds us. Father, we're grateful that we have the opportunity to join together as a community this evening and to discuss the needs of this wonderful city in which we live. Father, we'd ask and we pray that thy Spirit will be with us, that we'll understand and be able to make decisions that benefit the whole. Father, we ask that thou will bless this valley with the moisture which we need so that we can get through the coming months. We ask and we pray for thy Spirit to be with us, to guide us and direct us. And we do so in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. We do have a request for a statement of belief from a Mr. Rajan Zed, Hindu leader, who is going to be calling in on my phone any moment. When he does, I'll turn him on speaker. He has a prayer that he's doing for us. So we'll get to that. Before we do, I am going to make an announcement very quickly. Dan, would you stand up, please? Dan Catlin has been the chairman of our planning commission for a number of months now and has done a great job. He's finding a need to step down at this point. So we will bring the alternate, Kathleen Lee, in to replace him on the council, and then they will elect a new chairman at that point. That'll take place next Wednesday in the regular planning commission meeting. And Dan, we appreciate your efforts, everything you've done, and your good faith and love for Tokerville. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Joey Campbell will be giving his report tonight in his stead. Mr. Rajan Zed has been calling me for a number of weeks now and emailing me trying to get on our agenda so that he can read a prayer. He's been doing it in council meetings all over at least the state of Utah. I'm not sure how many other places as well. But
Is he a resident of Tokerville?
He is not a resident of Tokerville. But he is a resident of Earth. Anyway, as soon as he calls in, and allow him to make his statement of belief through the microphone. First order of business then. Oh, are there any? Okay. Order of the agenda is to approve the agenda order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. In favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Rajan Zed, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you hear him?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead and read your statement of belief, if you would, please.
Okay. My hearty thanks to Mayor Lynn Chamberlain and council members for scheduling me to read invocation for the great city of Tokerville. I shall be reading from ancient Hindu scriptures in Sanskrit, some as old as 1500 BCE, and then interpret in English. Om Bhurvah Swah Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who's inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamya Tamsoma Jyotirgamya Mrityurmamritam Gamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Sakta Statam Karyam Karma Samachara. Asakto Hya Charan Karma Parma Panoti Purusha. कर्मण्येव हि संसिद्धि मस्सिता जनकादया लोका संग्रहा मेवापि संपा शंकर तुमरहासी. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless, one attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavatu, Saha Nabunaktu, Saha Viren Karbavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu, Ma Vidvisabahai. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening. May no obstacle arise between us. Samniva Kuti, Samna Hirdhyaniva, Samnamastu Mano Yathavasu Sahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts, may your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and conquer. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Thank you for your blessing, sir. We appreciate that very much.
Appreciated. You are welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Disclosures of declarations of conflicts of interest from the council members. Do we have any this evening? All right, hearing none, and we'll go on to the departments. Maybe before we do, I should go ahead and introduce our new employee, Mr. Kent Page. If you'd stand up, Kent. We are really, really honored to have Kent with us. He's our new city manager. Pockerville has never had a full-time city manager until now. And we're at the point where we desperately need one. So Kent went through the interview process and came out as the person that we selected to be our city manager. Very fortunate to have him with us, and we appreciate his presence here today. Thank you. He's wearing a lot of hats because it's still Pockerville and we're still small, but he'll be doing a lot of things for us. You'll be seeing a lot of him if you're interested in the city. Okay, Ash Creek Special Services representative, Mr. Goodwin.
Ruth showed me how to do this, so I hope I figured it out. We just brought in our second cutting of hay, and we're really busy like everybody else this time of year. Give you an example. They had 3,500 bales, and 3 guys loaded those out by noon. They were pretty tired individuals when they got done. That's a lot of hay to move. And we had the 1-ton bales moved out with the Trilacala. That was with the loader. That wasn't quite as bad. But for some reason, there's a real shortage of hay right now because of the drought. So the price.
We've got the pump station across the park is up and running. We will be maintaining that for a year, 2 years, and paying the power bill on that before it comes over to us fully. But we do check on it. So if anybody is down there at the park and hears that alarm sounding, please call. The number and everything's right on the day. We've got, I think that's pretty well, you get the concept of we're as busy as Pockerville will be. In the next few years, a lot of growth is going to happen. I attended the county meeting for Mike this week, and there was 3 subdivisions right in between New Harmony and the freeway coming in for the county. So there's a lot of growth out in the county too. As the communities grow, we hope to still be able to get with the city council and staff and cooperate with them and help them all we can. But to help you guys all we can, if there's any resettled spots that want to get us, let us know. We try to get out and get them fit, things like that. That's pretty much all I have. Do you guys have something for me that you would notice?
I've just got one question. Which park is it that alarm might be sounding? Is it Center
Right
Street?
here at the
Center
Culver
Street?
Park.
Center Street.
It's just right on top of the building. There'll be a red strobe light on, and there'll be a siren on. And right now, it's not too big of a worry, because there's only 1 or 2 houses on it. But there's a lot more fun, and there's some under construction.
And that siren means?
It just means the pump has failed in one way or another.
It's really bad.
Do we have to evacuate?
At least
You
evacuate.
write down where you live, everybody else will be okay.
I'll do that.
May I have a question for him?
Yes.
The pump up in Anderson Junction, is that on your schedule yet to be moved?
It is. We've actually talked to Ryan, who attends the staff meetings here, and Mike has been getting with them. We've told him what can be salvaged. That pump, even though it's never run, except when we flush it and exercise it, it's been in for, believe it or not, 10 to 15 years. And so there is some components that will be changed out, electrical components, because they're out there.
And what's your timeline? Do you know when they're going to start on that?
I wish I could tell you tomorrow, because we've been pushing it. We'd like to have it before the subdivision over there goes, and that's what we told them, because then you've got to bypass. You've got sewage flow going into the pump station, then you've got to find a way to bypass it.
Yeah.
It's a lot more expensive, so they need to get it moved, so you'll see that moving.
Okay. That's about as clear as mud.
Just
Sewer mud.
Beat around the bush as long as they could.
Yeah.
Just couldn't stand it, could you?
No.
Anything else?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Spendlove is not with us tonight. Hopefully he's doing something fun instead of putting out a fire or pulling somebody out of a wrecked car. But Mr. Versumack, you're up.
I don't think I have anything for the council unless you have questions for me.
No, I was going to say, Mr. Spendlove did call me briefly, and it's going to be on our agenda. The one thing he wanted to emphasize was that,
Sorry, fireworks.
yeah, the fire danger is so high, they strongly recommend us adopting a policy within the city about fireworks.
Planning and zoning we had 4 renewals last business meeting. And we had 3 public hearings. We had 3 discussions, which are on your agenda tonight. And it looks like almost all of them were recommended approval for 5-0. And
Okay. Not at this point. Mr. Page, have you got anything for us this evening you'd like to bring up?
I'm just glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. JD,
So we had 4 water leaks in the past 3 weeks. We had one that had a culvert over top of the water main and the water lateral and not from Sean for some reason. So this is how why we didn't expect them to be installed. But we got that fixed and got all the patches done. The asphalt on Berry and Pioneer will be done next week, hopefully. We had to move it back because the sewer district is going to fix the main on Berry Lane. Pretty much all I have. Any questions?
Sewer district didn't support that.
I don't know, it's weird, it's not.
We TV'd the line and found that it was cracked and busted in 2 spots. But we thought about having the asphalt laid and digging it up.
Digging
like
up
cities
later.
do. We would have probably got the blame for it. If we could have put the blame on Lance, we would have done
So are you paying for your asphalt section on top of your sewer trench?
that. Because it's not been laid enough.
Interesting. I think we'll have to talk about that, Blair.
in fact, really, they should probably pay for the whole street because they were gonna have to dig it up anyway.
we'll negotiate.
And they will be doing that first thing. in the morning.
Okay, great.
Should be done.
Mr. Snow?
Everything else, Councilor Leader.
Okay. All right, we will move then into our public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone who would like to address the city council on any subject that is not on the agenda to take advantage of this opportunity and come up to the microphone, which is be there any second, I'm sure. Microphone.
Batteries.
Okay. As soon as we get a microphone, come up to the microphone and state your name and your address and your business. And would love to hear from you. Is there anyone who would like to address the city council this time then on one of those matters that's not there? Yes, sir. Talk loud.
I spoke with the mayor before this meeting. It was taught us for the announcement, but I do want to say thanks for all the support I had while I was on the commission for the last couple of years, and especially as chairman. The reason I'm stepping down is I enjoyed the work. I truly believe that the city will be better served with a different person in as chairman on the commission. So I'm a little too black and white and a little too hard driving on what I believe is right and wrong. And I pretty well hold to the letter of the law. And that is not always the best position to take, I've found here. So I think it would be better served for someone who's more in line with the community feelings than I am. So thank all of you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, then we will go into our working agenda. Item number 1, discussion on a conditional use permit application by David Lundell for a workshop located at 140 West Sunset Avenue, zoned agricultural. The Planning Commission recommended approval 4-1. Any discussion on that?
Mayor, the only thing I'd say to that is we had this conversation last council. It came up. We asked the planning commission to go back and look at ag and see if we could make it fit. They came back and said they didn't want to change it. So, or it wasn't necessary to change it. So I'm comfortable with approving it.
Any other comments?
Well, it's no
We
vote. I'm just,
won't vote on it until 2 weeks from now. This is just for discussion. Anything else? All right. Any discussion from the audience on that item? Okay, we'll move on to number 2, discussion on the final site plan submitted by Precept Holdings LLC for an RV tiny cabin resort. Zoning is highway commercial. And Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0. This is across the freeway, correct?
It's this side of the freeway.
This side of the freeway. Would you like to say anything about your plans, or you're good?
I don't think we need to.
Okay.
Oh, yes, you do. No,
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I do have some questions, Mayor, if I may. So, as you know, this is the right at the Anderson Junction, right? So it's for lack of a better term, it's the gateway, as people are coming in off the off the freeway there. Your site is the first one they'll see, basically. And that's why I think it's important that the landscaping be something that is in harmony with the area, but also attractive, right? And it says at the time that the applicant has not submitted the landscaping plan, but there is a statement that you've agreed to show 15% of the property while finished landscaping. And my recommendation, request is please make it look good, right? I mean, that's an area that we want to be a good introduction to, or entryway into Toberville.
Building. So south of the building, you see the almost, I don't know, candy corn shaped lines. That's the detention basin there. And then the triangle on the north side. So there will be grass areas in the locations. and most of the other landscaping. And there's a lot of plants and or bushes and things to make it attractive around the building itself there in the middle with those smaller plants, as well as some around the trees in front of the cabins. And then there's, in the lower left, a little further down on the page, there's a legend that tells you what type of trees and plants that were proposed right there. Right there in the bottom left. So they're plants that thrive very well in our climate. So that was taken into consideration to put in there, and then just basically 2 types of trees to give it some contrast. And a lot of them are quite close together. So you see 2 different types of trees with.
And how mature are they going in? Are these 5-gallon trees, or are they the box trees? How mature are they?
I'm not sure.
You thought of that?
They'll grow.
They'll grow.
Maybe.
That's the problem, is that if they're really young and they aren't taken care of, then it looks like a big barren spot, right? And that's part of the concern, is like, look, that's our entryway. Plus the other side, which is the side closest to SR 17, it's not even, I don't see anything identified. It says reserved for future development, right? Is that my understanding?
Yeah, so it will be left alone. So.
Is it going to be cleared, or are you going to leave it the way it is right now?
No, it'll be left the way it is right now. We don't need any material from there. You can see the power lines are running right there and over the cul-de-sac, the main power lines that run through there. And we don't anticipate doing any work on that side except for a small drainage ditch at the south property line to get it over into an existing ditch from our road and from our detention ponds.
I have a question about one of the trees species, the evergreen elm, and Joey, maybe you can get a little more help. Is this the elm youth cutting out elm trees?
So Barry, I have a couple things that I'd like to bring up. Settlers Drive, that's actually old Highway 91 in the future. That road comes up, ties into old Highway 91 for our agreement.
Okay.
So I don't know, council, whether or not we want to leave that. We probably need to rename that to old Highway 91 so it's consistent. Then the other thing is, and I don't know where we're at, so it's a question, not really a statement, but on part of the agreement to move old highway, Settlers Drive, old Highway 91, is that there is a land agreement between your developer and the bodega group at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, have we signed that? Have we got that executed? Or are you waiting on me? Do you know where we're at?
We executed that a month ago. You said you'd had that taken care of.
So you're waiting on me?
I'm shocked, but yes.
We did it.
I haven't seen a signed version yet.
Okay, Jerry, you and I get together. Let's just try to have that done before our next meeting if it's not done. So I'll work with you on making sure it's handled.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Anything else?
When I see the term tiny cabin, I'm visualizing these wheels move around and so on like that. But so just for the sake of the public, so they have any idea, you've got 2 different sizes. Could you just tell us how many people each cabin is going to accommodate?
2 to 6. Uh-huh.
And they're not on wheels, right?
No.
They look like the ones in Apple Valley, pretty much, right? Have you seen those on
Side of the road.
side of the highway, in Apple Valley?
Oh, yes. Yep. Yeah. And there's if you go down to pages 6 and 7, we have elevations of them in there. Right there. So there'll be 3 of them together, and they're kind of jogged and offset to allow for views and a little bit of privacy on the patios.
I kind of hate to bring this up,
Uh-huh.
but any idea how that fits with our short-term rental ordinance?
I think this is allowed.
It's commercial use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Highway commercial and campsites.
Okay. So if it's not residential,
Right. It's being treated more like small hotel rooms. And
yeah, okay, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Any
So-
other questions?
So Jerry and Barry, I found that document. Alpha made some adjustments to it. I have it revised. I'll forward it on to you right now.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just kidding. Yes.
Okay, we'll move on then to item number 3. Thank you.
I've got a quick question.
Yes.
Have you heard anything from the water district on the reservoir well and EPTA on when
Yeah, we've actually heard quite a few different things over the years. Right now, the word is, and Keen, you can jump in if you want to, that construction on the pipeline aspect of it could start as early as this fall, this August, September. The rest of it may be a year from there. It's going to be like a 2-year project in 2 parts anyway. So they'll be building.
from on top of Black
Right, right. That's going to take longer than the rest of it, so they're starting on that first. So there might not be a lot of visible going on, but there will be work being done to get the water down here if we ever get any water.
So maybe 2023.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. All right, item number 3, discussion on a zone change application for 8.31 acres submitted by BBBA LLC. Current zoning is MU20 multiple use, proposed zoning R120. PC recommended approval 4-0. Is there anyone that'd like to address that particular item?
I had a question. Is there an overlay district on this, or is it not? I'm not an overlay. Is there a development agreement in place for this? And does the development agreement address density? It doesn't? And that's why they're having to do, because it seems to me we don't need a zone change if the development agreement addresses density, but if it doesn't address density, then I can see why they need this. Okay. This is phase 3, right?
Where is the Nephi's Twist trailhead in relationship to that?
It's up towards phase 4.
Okay. So it's a ways away from it.
Has there been a resolution with Nephi's Twist? Are we okay with that? And I think, do we need to discuss that or anything?
Yeah, I think we do need to discuss Nephi's Twist about getting back to access and getting people back on that trail. So. Is that what item 5 is about? What's that? No, that's something else. Another trip. So, I'm happy to go down as the city to help make a gate, a fence, or something to keep people from dumping in there.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to get Nephi's Twist back open. What do we have to do to make this happen?
So I think that the first step would be to get the zone change, and then we'll submit a preliminary plat for phase 3. And again, and then we can go through that process. But in our development agreement, it's sort of phased openings, as you can see on the plat map. And so, like as far as Nephi's Twist being an open area, that would be more in line with phase 4 when it's opened up. And so
The original agreement also says that all trails, existing historical trails, will remain public.
correct, as they're recorded,
Well, that's big.
they'd be to the city, but it has not been recorded. It's private property. We've spent quite a bit of time going through the title work and with our attorneys and stuff, kind of going through the phased agreements. And in the agreement, it states that when it's recorded, it will be the trail. But then in the development agreement, it also states that it's to be maintained and regulated by the homeowners association. And so when that phase is open, and so I think that's a discussion for later on, but as it stands right now, it's private property, and the enforcement of that with gates and dumping and everything, it's kind of similar to what's going on in Tokerville Falls. The reason that it was closed off wasn't so much to keep the residents of the neighborhood out of it. In fact, when they've asked if they can go hiking and stuff there, we just say we'll continue to prosecute those people who abuse the land. But I mean, you've got people camping in at Tokerville Falls, and just all sorts of chaos. And I mean, when Gunlock Falls was vandalized, all this happened at Tokerville Falls. We had people standing on developed lots in phase 2 shooting in the direction of the trailhead. We had people dumping garbage, camping, starting bonfires. And so it really becomes an enforcement issue. And I think until there's homeowners that are able to have like a visible eye on that trailhead, it doesn't really make sense to open it up. And it also doesn't make sense to open it up now with phase 3 of the development agreement going through and prohibit a zone change tied to that. It makes more sense to put that together in phase 4.
Heath, what are you thinking? We've talked about this.
First of all, this is good to know that we're talking about this now where my attorney is here to
Well, we're not.
defend me, because first of all, it is private property. It's always had no trespassing signs on this property. And I'm confused with why you're so intent on opening my private property up in this situation, especially when the last time I was here, you guys, Mayor himself, which I have reported, talking about what are they going to do with the situation that we have going on at Tokerville Falls, to put up a gate to stop people from going up there. It's turned into a complete shit show, literally. up there. And I'm not having that open up and dealing with it. It's my private property. I'm responsible for all of the insurance. Somebody could get hurt. I'm Tokerville City.
It's a.
And I wish we had my attorney.
That's great.
This
She's here
wasn't on
too.
the agenda. We're talking about a zone change.
Yeah, and we can apply
So
any
let's go
reasonable,
to that.
and we can apply any reasonable conditions to the zone change we want to. And one is to restore a
And that's fine, and I.
The historical
choose not to move
prescriptive
forward with
easement.
any development as well. Is that what you're saying to me? And if so, I would like it in writing.
What do you mean?
Whatever you're saying, what are you saying? You're saying.
If you would let him say it, maybe
And
you'd know
so
what he's
What
saying.
are you saying? That you're also gonna say, oh, if I grant you this zone change, we want that trail opened up? When I have a notarized document from the Tokeville City saying you don't want any responsibility of this trail whatsoever, what year is that? You've got a copy of that, this was all sent to you.
Let me answer your question.
Yes.
Okay. Your private property is subject to a historical prescriptive trail. It's been there for years. And you purchased the property. It may not be a recorded easement, but it is a historical right-of-way, has been, and you're blocking it.
So it sounds like we need to get into our courts and court about this. Yes,
If you'd like to initiate it, that'd be fine.
that's up to me.
Our insurance can pay for it if you initiate it. If we initiate it, we have to pay for it.
I'm going to.
Okay. Well, but that will be a condition of the zone change.
Mayor, may I have a question, applicant? What's your timetable on phase 3 and 4? Because it might be a moot issue. What's your timetable on phase 4? Is it 10 years down the road, or is it 6 months down the road? So it could be years down the road.
Exactly. It's totally different.
So it's an illusory promise when you say we'll open it when we get to that phase, because it could be never.
Depends on the money.
And the property describing that you've experienced there, are they coming from the other side of the trail, or are they coming up from this side?
They originally, before the gates, they were coming through phase 1. They'd park trailers, unload toys in front of the, the residents who live in the lots around there. Currently, there are a lot of mountain bikers that come through from the back end. They park at the city park and access it that way. Again, with it being a trail, it's not something that's been continually prosecuted. It's just enforcement and maintenance to keep it a safe place to be.
So the mountain bikers causing troubles for you as well, or have the troubles
No, they haven't
diminished?
caused troubles they have not. When we have closed the gate, all the troubles have diminished. When the gate was open, we get calls all the time. Hey, they just parked an RV and are setting up and starting a fire.
That's what I want to discuss, is the
Yeah.
way we can put a narrow walk-through gate, mountain bike gate there to let people access it, but keep out dumpers and campers and stuff like that. I'm not saying you can't have your phase. I just want to figure out how we can make this open and not, come together on how we can get this trail open for hikers and bikers.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to discuss.
Yeah.
Is it also an ATV trail?
Well, there's supposed to be ATV trails all over TRE, but I don't know what the rules are there. I would love to see ATVs, but that's up to the public down there who live down there. I'm not gonna, if you want to, I live on Westville, and I have ATVs drive all of them down the road, all around the backside of me. They go all over. So it's on private property, and the owner who owns the land hasn't kicked them off. So we can't stop them from going out there and using that property. So, and I'm not saying I want to stop anybody. I'm not saying I want to allow them or not allow them. I don't live down there. So if you guys want ATVs to drive through it, that's great. But I think foot traffic and mountain bikers, and being a historical trail, should be allowed through that. And the original agreement, it says that the historical trail will be open through the whole, before you, I think with the original document, before you guys were even involved with Trail Ridge Estates.
Yeah, and the current documents on there state that they'll be open, but then on I think it might even be on this document, there's a note that says that those are to be maintained and regulated by the homeowners association. And if it's not on this note, it's on a different one. And so I just, I think all this discussion needs to take place, but I think it needs to happen in the parameters of the development agreement, which I'm not prepared with right now. And I think that needs to happen together and through there, but
Get a discussion and figure out what we can do to get together and figure out how to get this trail open.
so it says all parks and trails will be maintained by their homeowners association at intervals appropriate to their designation. And so I've spent quite a bit of time reading through this, and what I haven't found is that it's open to the public carte blanche anywhere. And I think that's the miscommunication here. And I mean, when you go through and open something and there's not enforcement, it's a nightmare. And so I think that the city is on the same page with having that trail be open space and not being developed or built on and having people use it. But who and what uses that is subject to, I think, the enforceability of it. And right now there's none. Yeah.
If we're putting a gate and stopping dumpers,
Yeah. Because we had a demand letter from the city to remove the gate. And then our response to that was the right-of-way states that they have done. I mean, the city would need to get a court order in order for us to be in violation of that. Somebody would need to deem it a right-of-way. And so that's kind of how I understood that process. And we can work that out later. But I think that what's most beneficial for the city and the homeowners and stuff like that is to go through with the third phase of the process. And then it's like with the third phase, where
down the road.
I think it's kicking the can down the road in the sense that when phase 4 is open and there's a homeowners association to maintain and watch that trail, then it should be open.
Conflating the word maintain with regulating it.
Yeah.
And maintaining, I would disagree with that. It means regulating, it means maintaining it, and specifically it has to do with parks and some of the other amenities and stuff we have, but trails too.
And
opening a historic trail and having to maintain it, I don't know if we would expect you to in an undeveloped portion of your property.
Yeah, and that's where I think that it would be best to do it under the parameters of the development agreement and what it says when it's in front of us and when that phase is going So I mean, you are kicking the can down the road, but I don't think it's necessary to open until it's developed.
The public is,
Prohibited from using private property. And when it is opened, and it's not public, and it's a historical trail, but there's not a public right of way until the court declares there's one, is how I understood it.
So there's a possibility that we would still have an issue even when you complete phase 4. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
when we go to the phase 4 approval process, and like, for example, with phase 2 and with phase 1, those trails are put in at the time that it's recorded, houses are built, people are there, if that makes sense. But right now it's just around a corner down a hill. So I don't think it is kicking the can down the road as far as delaying it. I think it's something that could be done with the development agreement, but I don't really see it pertinent to the phase 3 zone change. I think it's something that has to do with phase 4.
does the development agreement cover all 4 phases?
It does. And it's essentially timetabled out for this happens at this phase, this happens at this phase.
I mean, no doubt, if we were going to require you to construct improvements to that trail,
Mm-hmm.
then we would have to require it to be constructed at the time that phase where that portion of the trail goes through. That's not where we're at right now. We're not asking for the trail to be improved in any way. We're asking it
to be open to the public.
To be open, as it has historically been. That's all. And I get your point. You can say that it's a public right of way, and until a court says that it's a public right of way, that's just your opinion, Mr. Snow, and I get that. I completely get that. But that has been the city's position for a long period of time. And now you're coming to the city and asking for entitlements and approvals, and
within the parameters of the development agreement.
And the development agreement allows us to place reasonable conditions upon approvals of subsequent phases of your development. And one of those conditions, my strong recommendation is that that trail be reopened to the public. We're happy to discuss limitations and methods to limit who and how it's accessed, but that it's not prohibited.
I think the who and how it's accessed, we could reach a happy medium if we can agree on that.
Yeah.
We understand what your concerns are.
Yeah.
You expressed them with respect to the way the property is being used.
Right, you guys need to buy an insurance form and take care of that piece of ground.
Or you need to insure it.
Yeah.
Like liability insurance. And I think the historical use of
Sign an indemnification agreement.
You want to know what? You want to dedicate that trail to the city, and we will gladly.
There's that sign that told us we sign something. Where's that?
I negotiated the development agreement. I don't remember any language in that.
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. You
We
can.
have it to you.
well, and I think for the sake of the meeting, I think we're kind of at a mute point where it's whether the zone wants to happen with the condition, then that's going to be necessary. But
On liability. City has governmental immunity, and if you want to dedicate so we actually own the trail, then
Now you're changing your mind. You want it now before you're like being signed deed. That you're being responsible. Is that
what
correct?
responsibility to maintain it, all of your trails.
Liability. But.
She had one job.
One job.
I love it. I love it.
And I think for the sake of the council meeting and just wasting time, I think we should set up an appointment to discuss this just outside of it. And
I really like.
we can go through things. Yeah.
it very well might be that the tone of the council has changed over time because you have different personalities and because you have a change in growth, right? There's way more people out there now than, so I would welcome it. I would highly recommend it, that sit down and see if there's a happy medium, and if there is, great. If there's not, then we go to the next level. But I've got to think that if
All right.
Okay.
I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that item before we move on? Okay. Discussion on deferral agreement for Pat Wilson, tax ID number.
So Mayor, this is in regards to a piece of property that's located up on Togerville Heights, where we do not have existing curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And we've been signing these deferral agreements for developments up there. So I have no issues with moving forward on with that.
Any other discussion on that item? Okay, number 5, discussion on public and private trails. Can we just have that?
I was going to say, I thought I brought that up, and he said, no, it's not talking about.
Is this a Justin
Well,
thing?
this was, you guys talked about it the other day, and said you were gonna bring it up on the agenda, but I wasn't in that meeting. All I'm hearing is we're having some issues with some trails in Choya Creek and TRE.
Oh, okay. The trails along the stream.
Right, and this is, so I'm really kind of behind on this one, but I'm guessing that is what this is about. So, and I'm not sure what the complaints were, I was just,
Does staff have any insight on those?
Yeah, there was a discussion of the gentleman in Public Streets told that he was inquired, asked if he lived in the neighborhood, told him that he area. There's also somebody on the TRE side, who made a question too.
So both association citizens or residents, I should say, were chasing people out of that trail.
Inquiring and advising that he would be,
Best if they leave.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on the trail, it was in the street, in a public street.
so,
I'm John Norris, the president of Trail Ridge Estates. And, the path it's your path. So as far as I know, no one at Trail Ridge has ever blocked anybody. Now, you go across the stream, their path, and it's a nice path, it's much better than ours for Choya. That's their property. So I totally understand. But, some of our people will go over there. It's much nicer than ours. So. But telling people to get off the streets, that's the first I've heard of it. Anyway,
I'd fight somebody in the middle of the street over that.
So Justin, there's no rule with respect to who can be on either one of those pathways.
well,
So that's,
Choya Creek, I think they can restrict
yeah, it's owned by the HOA, it's private property.
private property. So there is some restriction there, but I don't know. I don't live down there. Once again, I don't live down there. I'm not,
But they would have the right to inquire as to if an individual lived on that property. And
lived in that,
ask
in that
the
development.
homeowners association, ask them to leave then if they were.
They legally could ask that, yes.
they ask them to get off the trail.
No.
Right.
And I think what's
Yeah, not the roadway, I'm talking about the trail.
pretty confident what's been happening is people have come across the bridge. As they come across the bridge, there's a home that's right beside it, and they've asked them, inquired of them, hey, are you part of Choya? If you're not, hey, just know that this is public property or private property where the trail is. That's been the tone that I've heard from multiple people from Trail Ridge that live over there, but I don't know as though it's always given that same way. So, but I don't know as though it's much discussion to have. It's pretty, Choya is private, and it's public on the other side. The streets are public. If somebody calls and says that, then they need to tell the person to pounce in.
I don't know that we have to do anything about this.
No.
Nope.
But
So I have a question. If the Choya site is private, but the Trail Ridge site is not, do we have an interest in approaching Trail Ridge, I'm sorry, Choya about doing whatever they did on the Trail Ridge site so that it is a city
maybe-
trail?
Maybe just dedicating both of them to the city.
Well, so we've had multiple, at least I've had conversations with the Choya Creek Homeowners Association and multiple times, and it's gone in phases, just like as the council changes, the HOA board changes, and some boards have been interested, some haven't. It would actually take the sign off of it's a large percentage of the property owners in Choya to sign off on giving away private ground, right? So I think from a city, we've offered it multiple times. Kirsten Fuller, I think, is the president right now. I mean, if we wanted to talk about that, we could obviously schedule a meeting with them and see where it would go. But it is different, it's walking through, maybe 14 residents' backyards. And so that's where the issue has come from.
If you're gonna treat it like a park or a trail, you have to budget money for the maintenance and the clearing of the brush, which is like, I think the federal and state homeowners associations that $5,000 to clean up their site. So that's a pretty heavy bill the city will have to maintain those sites.
So I think, Justin, I hate to do it to you, but it's on yours. I think it would be worth reaching out to Kirsten and seeing.
Yeah, if they're interested at all. If not, then
Just put it to bed and it is what it is.
Like I said, it really comes down to almost 100% of the owners have to. It's not what's
right.
So Heath, help me if you can. Are there any riparian area issues with the Army Corps of Engineers on this kind of, they're in the riparian area? Flood trails.
We would have to, I would want to look, I don't know, because I don't know what the floodway is. Privately owned. I think it was Masuka.
I mean, Keith, we've gone down this path when we had flooding before, and the end result was because it was privately held, the maintenance of it could be taken care of by the HOA. We could cut trees and clean up the debris and pull it out of there. I don't know what it would change to though if it went to owned by the city, how the public side of that would take effect on it.
I got a question. How long ago was that when they cleaned that creek out? 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when they actually went and did that?
So it was never actually cleaned out except for the sections where the riprap was done. So, it was a pretty good jag from where the park is down, and then there's a piece down further. That would have been in like 20.
The last big flood was 12.
Yeah, but it took us a couple years to get it all done. So it'd been like maybe 14 or somewhere in there.
If you go down there, you look in that creek area, it's, yeah.
I know we need another flood.
If we get 4-day rain or 5-day rain, we're gonna
It'll clean it right out.
clean it up.
So it's definitely worth a conversation, but I don't know where that goes when the public owns it.
Any other conversation on item number 5? Okay, item number 6, discussion on discharge of fireworks resolution.
Mayor, I can speak to that. I spoke with the fire chief and with Chief Spindler. So because the fire danger is so high right now, the fire chief is recommending that all of the cities adopt a resolution that prohibits fireworks for this year, just outright ban. However, there is a state law that says that cities cannot do an outright ban unless one of two circumstances apply, and one is the city lies within a canyon, or 2, the city is surrounded or next to a wild, what's the phrase it used, wilderness areas. I think Tokerville falls in that latter category. So it's a point of discussion.
Wilderness area, or does it have to be designated wilderness area?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that has to be.
It has to be designated.
So, I mean, I think if I were to make a decision on that, in the past, what we've done is we've allowed it to be done in all the parks.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to minimize it down to like Center Street Park, or we can put our brush truck down there and have the ability to help instead of have it all dumped on the fire department. I mean, there's a lot of ground down there now, but if it's developed, it changes the dynamic of it. I guess I'd struggle to completely ban fireworks, but definitely we need to be cautious of where they're at, and we have them spread out in 3 locations, I think, right now, we've identified, so.
I'd rather see us contain it to one location, I think.
Into one
I think we
location?
can handle it. It's not that, there's not that many people anymore that are filling, I don't know, maybe if we put them all in one park, it would seem like a lot more than it is, but.
So you're talking about restricting it to grass areas that are watered?
No, I'd say we just put it to
Parking lot.
to make to the Center Street Park
We had a fire there last year.
on the south side, or north side.
No, on this Century Park.
On which side? Wasn't it on the north side?
It's on the hillside, but not by.
Or was it going up?
I thought it was going up with the wall.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, Kane and I were talking about this, and I'm like, could we get the fire department to station something out there? But I don't know if that's possible.
I don't think they would.
Truck out there or not, or.
You're on board.
I don't think they would because they're gonna keep everybody on call. But putting what's our brush truck, because it's got water in it, right?
It does, and we have a hydrant at the top of the park now with walls. We have a hydrant over on Old Church. We have some hydrants around there that if we were strategic, we could try to figure out a way to do it a lot safer than what's happened in the past.
Yeah, we could put.
It would require some staff, which
Yeah, we could
would
put
be
some
asking
hoses
staff to
there
work
and-
on the 4th of July.
Or at least be there, right? And
Lighting off
anything
their own
happens.
fireworks.
Yeah, and if it gets on fire, then they're there to.
What do you do?
Park is pretty contained now. That wall subdivision's
Yeah.
on top, the only spot you have grass on the one hillside on the west side.
Just from the bleachers up.
Yeah.
And that's assuming no wind blows.
I would be concerned about the stream.
Yeah.
We saw what happened last year about with Quail Creek as it goes into Red Cliffs campground. Those trees are gone. All of those.
Yeah, that would devastate the scenery down there.
We could do
It's
Westville
real
Park.
rushy right now.
There's 2 acres of barren, nothing in
There-
Westville.
And it's got the street on both sides. Yeah. And a hydrant on both sides.
Yeah.
That sounds hot and dusty and.
It's gonna be dark, you won't know.
Yeah.
You'll still be lighting them up.
Welcome to the 4th of July.
Yeah, they're supposed to not do that.
Yeah, so anyway, just a thought is to be thinking about, we want the ordinance to be, as Ty said, typically we've said only at the parks over the last couple of years that where it's been so.
Well, so what do we
dry?
Coming down the other side of it doesn't zero good to pass that.
And
And then they're all gonna go off anyways, and then how are we gonna be enforcing it?
Well, sure. No, but it's adopting it and then getting the word out that that is the resolution. And if someone violates it and causes a fire, then they've got trouble.
liable.
Yep.
Do we want to put any restrictions on aerial fireworks, like ban them?
Can we do that?
Yeah, we
City
can.
can.
Oh, man, I gotta return all those mortars.
Yeah.
And they are going to do a big fireworks show out at the lake.
Right.
And with that road being finished, what is it? SR7 now? or- There'll be a lot more room for people to sit and watch the fireworks show. So the fire district really is encouraging everyone to go out there if they want to watch a fireworks show, and please don't do any on your own this year. It's just too hot, dry, and risky.
Okay, are we discussed?
We discussed.
We can bring it right there by the stream with all the brush and debris that's in it. I wouldn't do it. I mean,
Joy,
where's that?
what are we talking, Trail Ridge Park?
Park.
Yeah, that's worse than.
It is, it's worse than Center Street.
It is.
Well, if you got an aerial going off in Westfield, you've got nothing but brush you can get over when those houses are. So maybe Center Street might be the best option.
Well, I think limiting aerials too, would be the other side of it, right?
Just keep them out.
Because that's gonna be a huge issue regardless.
All it takes is a spark. Okay, any other discussion on that item? Okay, discussion on 4th of July celebration. Chuck, that sounds like you.
Well, we're not having any fireworks.
Okay, good.
It'll be on the 3rd instead of the 4th or 5th.
Saturday.
So on Saturday, because that seems to be the general consensus of our council, that's what would happen. In the process of lining up some bands, and probably follow the same format that we've followed in the past, because people seem to like that and it seems to work pretty good. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, you had mentioned prior that you and your part of your family would be available to maybe add some music or something to that. But with you,
Not on the 4th of July.
now that 4th, you'll be off playing someplace else. Yeah,
So to speak, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
I may have an option.
Your walrus flutes will be playing up there. So, okay. But if anybody has any suggestions on anything different or special you'd like to do for the 4th of July, please let me know so I can put this together the next couple of weeks. So I can report on it at our next meeting.
Thinking about breakfast?
Yes. I'll get that tomorrow too.
Okay. What's on the menu? Pancakes and watermelon?
Yeah, whatever we've had in the past. It seemed to work
Same.
very well. I don't want to reinvent the wheel here, because what's worked before, people kind of come to expect that, and it's part of the camaraderie of everybody getting together, getting to stand in line and wait for your breakfast.
Didn't know if you're making eggs Benedict for everybody.
Good. That's what the council wants.
Pancakes would be good.
And we're not charging this year.
Did we charge last year?
No, we didn't.
Oh,
Pancakes are
well, you
cheap.
gave me more money.
Pancakes are
You said I
cheap.
had a big bag of money I could use this year.
I think, they charge in Laverkin, don't they? Yeah, I think the word's getting out that it's free at Tocqueville.
They do a lot of things in Laverkin that we don't do here.
That's right. Okay. And, in keeping in line with the things you were asking me about, we did have a Memorial Day flag raising ceremony at the cemetery. It was short, flag up all the way down to half mast, played taps, put it back up. About 10 people. But it wasn't supposed to be a really big event. It was just supposed to be a thing to remind people what Memorial Day was all about. And next year, plan to have a bigger event. And we're going to have a big event on Veterans Day here too. So you get Armed Forces Day, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, kind of maybe ought to consolidate wreaths across America, consolidate our efforts in one or two of those things.
So there was some, I know the flags going to get put up on the cemetery road.
Oh, yes. Flags were out, flags were up.
They didn't get put out by the correct group on that day, so we covered them. So we need to get with JD and go up and identify where those all are, and then make sure that all the group organizations that are involved know where those are.
Okay, well, there were lots of flags out.
There was lots of flags out. Some of them aren't owned by the city.
Oh, well, can you have too many American flags out?
Nope, you cannot. It's a good thing.
Okay, discussion and resolution, budget amendment.
So I had that prepared and then we had a big water line break. So I had to read this. It will be ready and there will be a public hearing for the next city council meeting, so.
Next city council being next month or in June? Okay.
Yeah.
Dana, when those come in, make sure we're splitting that between the streets and the water. I can help you go over
I
them.
was told that it was gone.
So the public hearing,
Other than the asphalt.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The asphalt, some of that needs to be covered by water, some of it needs to be covered by streets.
The asphalt will be covered by streets.
It'll be split. Because there was a section that we replaced because it was damaged by water, and there's a section that made more sense to replace that while it was open. So we'll just split it
All
up.
the infrastructure.
Perfect.
So that's what.
You're gonna tell all the streets are covered.
so you're talking about a public hearing on the 16th?
Yes,
So that needs to be advertised tomorrow?
7 days, not 10.
I thought it was 14 for public hearing.
For budget 7.
Budget 7.
land use.
10, okay.
Good enough. Okay, discussion on city vehicle lease options. JD, are you the man for that? I'm kind of familiar with what's going on.
Yeah, I got some information on it. The lease that Lance has been looking at is for 32,000 miles a year, and it's $4,500 a year for the lease. Both of our older trucks have over 250,000 miles on them. Last week mine broke down in the middle of meter reads, so that for a little bit we have to on finishing those. And get some picking up. But well, our vehicles are getting older. Backhoe had a maintenance today. It's more expensive over again. And said that they have another vehicle available if you want to start the lease next week, it sounded like. But that's something that's
Discussed it with Lance, and it sounded to me like $4,500 a year for 32,000 miles of a bargain.
Well, and that's why we went down that path initially, but some good task for the new city manager is it seems like, Dana, that we're buying out the rest of the lease on Lance's, and so we're paying for it anyways.
To the pipeline.
Yeah, so I think before we jump into another lease, we ought to really decide what the best situation is, because our trucks are not used like by office staff and taken immaculate care of, they're work trucks. And so by the time that time's up, they're not worth the value of them. It's tremendously down.
So we looked at some new vehicles. I think in F-150 about 35,000, and I'm not sure what size the other was.
So I just think before we jump into a lease again, just knowing what the end, it's great that it's $4,500 a year, and that's great for 3 years, and then we're over miles and we're buying it out. So I think we need to really make a better decision, and especially now that we've done it once, we know what it looks like financially.
I'm looking at what the price of used vehicles go for right now. Can't we buy through a fleet, through a state discount, run them for a year, sell them for more than they bought them, and do it again the next year?
So I can tell you that certain entities have been able to do that, but it's 100% dependent upon who's using those vehicles.
Okay.
Like office staff that's using them and they're getting highway miles and they're not getting stuff in the bed of them and they're not pulling a trailer. It seems like they've held up tremendously better, and that rotation's worked well. But we don't have one.
We don't have that. I think Ash Creek is doing the 1-year lease, and I think the Mosquito group is.
They're doing a 1-year lease, and
One-year
buy it
lease.
outright, and then turn around and.
No, they're doing the 1 year, and they seem to be thinking they're getting, like you said, more money than what they originally sold for. So I agree, it's something that our new city manager should take a look at. But that's
It's so nice to have that tool in the tool bag. We got to start using it.
That came from Ty, though. Keep that in mind, Ken.
I can get a black mark for it.
Just FYI, I have asked Lance if he'll get truck logs on the trucks beginning June 1st.
First or July 1st?
June 1st. Well, July 1st, fiscal year. Yeah. And, guys are on call, so I don't have a problem with them taking a truck when they need to, as long as it's used for city business. I think we need to limit it to that if we're going to end up buying new trucks and leasing out with limited mileage and that kind of stuff.
So you guys did adopt the vehicle policy of there's communities.
We did but it was it wasn't that specifically for a salaried individual, because it was part of the benefit package. Seems like that's how that was typed.
That was one of the options where it can be.
Yeah, I think it should absolutely be brought up.
Okay, any other discussion on that? All right, discussion on uniform fee schedule, commercial water rates, and hydrant meter rental deposit.
Yep.
So somebody came into the city office and wanted to rent a hydrant rental, and they said, wow,
Your rent was only $1,250. It's considerably higher over in the cities. It's a refundable deposit, but then when they return the meter, I have to subtract the water usage. So that's a question of whether we want to raise that hydrant meter deposit. Plus, we're charging $55 to our residents as a base rate for 10,000 gallons of water. And so we're charging $4 per 1,000 gallons for a hydrant rental. It's actually cheaper to rent the meter. Even though you're charged $5 a daily charge and $150 a month, and or those rentals that are like basic. But it's just something you guys need to look at and see if you want to increase that gallon rate usage and if you want to decrease the.
So the hydrant meter deposit is based off of the cost of a hydrant meter and the cost to check it out, basically. So I would say, JD, if you take the assignment, call a distributor, find out what a hydrant meter goes for today. I know fire hydrants have gone up tremendously, so everything probably has. Let's make sure we're covering that cost. And then the daily charge and the fee, it needs to be more than what our residents are paying for culinary use. And it just an oversight is something we need to get. So thank you for catching it, Dana. You want to put a proposal together for that?
And plus, I wondered if there's $1,250 cover like, let's say, month's worth of water usage. Too, because if they spit out the water meter and all that water, then.
No, that's not how it was structured. That was strictly if we lost our hydrant meter, we had a deposit to go get a new hydrant meter.
It didn't cover the water usage.
No, and I think what we've done here is if somebody gets a hydrant meter, we write them a check back for $1,250, and then they write us a check for the water they used, or do we deduct what the water they used out of the $1,250 before we pay them? Okay. All right.
Okay.
So Paul, we're on that, Mayor, I have a question. The issue came up recently about when someone makes an application, they pay the fee, whether that is refundable. And I went and looked through that, and I can't find anywhere that says it is refundable or not refundable. There is one area where it talks about the city's going to incur costs, and that's what your application is. No, overall, any fee, but it's the same document. So I'm wondering if, I couldn't find where the city's rule of law is, so to speak. Are fees refundable? Because mind you, if we go through the application process and then they back out, well, we've already incurred the cost. So I would my question is whether we should include in this a statement about when fees are refundable or not refundable.
I think fees should not be refundable. We can put except at the discretion of the council. We've agreed in times past a special request, but generally fees are non-refundable.
Deposits are refundable.
So if you scroll down a little bit, there's the language there. Maybe we should add that to keep going down a little more. Well, there's a statement about all fees. Keep a general statement right there. Note, where it says note. City engaged professionals, attorneys, engineers, blah, blah, blah. I wonder if we had not add a line in there that says, accordingly, all fees or all application fees are non-refundable except in the discretion of the, I don't know, city council, something like that. Do we want to add something there so it's clear?
If there's some, special circumstances that council feels moved to refund, but yeah, generally non-refundable.
And can we do that? Let's add the language in there, because I'd rather be able to have the staff point to something and say, well, it's non-refundable, but if you want a refund or feel like you should get a refund, then apply to the city council and they'll make the call. Because I can see where sometimes it would be wise to issue a refund, but I can see most of the time, no, because
the definition of a fee is different than the definition of a deposit.
Correct.
So.
Not referring to deposits, just those application fees.
And before we move on, I think we skipped.
Commercial water rate.
Sorry.
So we finished the residential, now it's a matter of dealing with the commercial, is that correct?
We did not have
Why does it say,
Ty had that on
why
his
does it say
grid.
sewer, commercial, schools, church, motels, $32 monthly for the first 12,000 gallons? Why doesn't it say water
we don't have anything on the water.
for the commercial rate?
Correct.
So why are we charging $12,000 or $32 a month for the first 12,000 gallons? $286 per thousand. That's referring specifically to
That's
water.
a water.
Used for sewer. I never looked at that.
We put water, we don't put a meter on.
No, we don't. No, that's written for water. Yeah, and
Not yet.
Yeah.
so I won't be here next council meeting. You know, I'll come in and get with you and let's reword that and then we can present it at next council. No, that's a mistake. We can clean that up.
No pun intended. Sorry. So you want to look at that in July?
Yeah, we can put that, well, you guys can vote on it next month. I'll have it ready. I'll come in and get with Dana and we'll have that fixed.
All right. Item number 12, we ready to move on? Discussion on plan development overlay zone ordinance, removing section 10-15B plan development
We
overlay.
do 11.
No, we didn't.
It's
Let's do
MPDO.
that first, shouldn't we?
Was it 11?
Yeah, let's do. Discussion on ordinance, NPDO density bonus and ordinance amending density bonus calculation, definitions and basis for calculations. PC recommended approval 5-0.
Sure, that's true. Everything you know. Big picture, it goes to 30% rather than 40?
Yes.
And they've got
Just
to
read up some verbiage.
Changed it from 5 acres to 100 acres, which
minimum
was
size
huge.
requirement to qualify for the PDO went from 5 acres to 100 acres. It's not to use a small basis, and yeah, Planning Commission spent a long time. There's not a density bonus for water conservation plans that are required under our water conservation plan as a city to have that. So to give them additional bonus on top of that, Planning Commission didn't think was warranted. Yeah, it just kind of tightened it up and made it more specific as to how they were going to get these bonuses. Very vague previously, so they spent a lot of time on that table in that section. So I reviewed it, and I think it looks good.
I have a question about it. So I'm looking at big picture. The MPDO allows the developer to come in and say, all right, this is what we're going to build out here. And we're going to have this overlay district on it. So we don't need to worry about pockets, whether it's going to be commercial here or R120 here or R112 there. They put it all together in their master plan when it comes time to develop, right? And that's kind of that big concept. Is that?
You kind of got.
Help me.
Generally, they do a conceptual plan to start with. A conceptual plan is a plan that's not chiseled in stone, but it gives the city and everyone an idea of how they are planning to lay this out. And at that point in time, they actually do specify residential, commercial, industrial
Okay.
areas.
That's in a perfect world because I'm thinking here, what we're getting ready to have here with Firelight.
We don't have a conceptual plan yet, do we? But we already do have a development agreement in place.
It's not an NPDO.
It's not,
Well, they're actually in the process, I think, of considering redoing the MPDO that they have, so that they can get some density bonus. Because given in their agreement, they actually did not get any density bonus.
so Mike, just for my sake, they don't have an MPDO, right? They have a development agreement. They gave 1,300 acres. We times it by 2, told them they could have 2,600 homes. That was it, right? And so that was the basis of that. So it's not actually an MPDO, correct?
Actually, if you read the reference that's in their development agreement, it references the ordinance in 2007 that was an MPDO. So, and it talks to both PDO and MPDO in their development agreement. I don't like their development agreement, by the way. But the only ordinance that they reference by number is in 2007 was the MPDO ordinance. So I don't think you can say they don't have an MPDO, because I think they do.
Then that
They've got a development agreement written on an ordinance that was titled MPDO in 2007. No, that was PDO. They referenced the MPDO ordinance. So that has changed title numbers now. And we've done some cleanup on it to try and tie the requirements a little bit tighter. So there's a kind of a deliverable on what you've got to do to get your bonus. We took it to where it can only come in as R120. Everything's based off R120. There's no more coming in at R112 or different. So we're always comparing apples to apples. We changed it from 5 acres minimum to 100 acres minimum, unless there's some special circumstance or land problem that an MPDO would make more sense for that property owner because it's so unique. We put in what was the comment from the council last time was 100 acres of buffer zone if it's going in against an existing established neighborhood, were the key ones that it was sent back on last time.
So then a developer, and I'm trying to make sure I got the concept right. A developer can have a development agreement that does not include an MPDO and later come in and do an MPDO application. Or is that no longer going to be required under this proposed amendment?
No, they still have to have development agreements, and it's actually not at the time of the original draft, like what's Firelight's coming in right now. Per the ordinance, that's not required until they come in for their final to have the development agreement in place. They do have to come in with conceptual drawing saying, you know, here's going to be where the commercial area is. They put in one phase on theirs when it came in. Theirs is very blank, to be honest with you.
Essentially, it's a development agreement that can be in place that might state later they're going to come in and do an MPDO application. Is that right? I mean, in other words, they're separate, or are they one and the same?
Well,
The development agreement is the conclusion of an MPDO.
All right, so you can't get a development agreement without an MPDO.
No, you can. We do development agreements also. We have another section about phased
Subdivisions.
subdivisions, like what Trail Ridge Estates is, that concluded, we gave them approval of their subdivision in phases, and we put a development agreement to it to say, okay, in this phase, you're doing this. Like
Okay.
this portion of the park gets done, and in this phase, this portion of the park gets done.
All right, so under our code, we can do a development agreement and have it be separate from an MPDO application.
Right. It's under a different ordinance.
Of what they have in Firelight is they have conceptual master plan development approval with the development agreement.
For density bonus, for the density.
For the density and some basic other things.
Okay, but hold that thought for a minute. I just want to make sure conceptually, you can get a development agreement without an MPDO.
Yes.
But if you're going to have an MPDO, you got to have a development agreement. Okay.
Correct.
I think what they would need to do is come in and seek an amendment to their MPDO conceptual plan and the development agreement. Wouldn't you?
All right, and to get the MPDO, that's when we have to submit a conceptual plan so we can see these
Yeah,
pockets of.
if they want density bonuses, they never got any density bonuses. So if they want to increase their density by 30%, they're gonna actually have to come and plot out
Gotcha.
areas.
Okay. Yep.
This is commercial, this is, and this is gonna be open space here, and this, those things to get the bonuses that they want.
So Heath, I have two things. The first thing would be is, speaking of Firelight specifically,
Okay.
that they don't own all that ground. They're taking it down in sections. So as they come in with a plan, if their plan encumbers the property they don't own, how do we guarantee that that property continues in that?
But Westbrook would have to sign off on the development agreement.
Exactly. So, okay, so that answers that question. Then I know like in their development agreement, it talks about commercial costing 2 residential units, right? It goes, is that something that we need to have addressed in the MPDO, how the commercial is taken care of? And do we want to take?
Well, yeah, it was, that was a question, and Doug wanted to keep it very, very simple back then.
Yep.
And so he wanted a total number of ERUs, equivalent residential units, and we said, okay, for every X of commercial floor space, it's 2 ERUs. And it was just the simple mathematics. I mean, they have this big number that they can chip away at, how they allocate it, but on their commercial, if they're going to go with a lot, that's how their ERUs get chipped away.
So does that have any place in an MPDO agreement like what we're looking at here?
Or is that a negotiation point for the city?
That is a negotiation point.
It's set aside in an MPDO by acreage. Okay, so if we're looking at 700 acres MPDO and they want to set aside 60 acres for commercial, they can do that. That 60 acres must have come off of the total acres before you figure the residential gets.
So is that 2 to 1, something that is common? Is that something the council's comfortable with?
No,
For a city with no.
2 to 1 was.
I would much rather now, looking at it, have them come in with an amended conceptual MPDO plan that actually shows their areas where they're going to do commercial and ask for a limitation of commercial floor space right in. Just like what we did with Lowe's.
Perfect. Well, and that answers, I'm just looking through this and we're getting ready to move forward, and I'm just trying to figure out how that ties together, so.
Well, and we were also trying to walk a fine line of leaving the city council flexibility and trying to pull it in a little bit, but leaving the city council enough flexibility to negotiate different aspects. So
Gray area that you love.
well, I don't want it, but a little gray area is a good thing sometimes. So, but you don't really want to take all the, we didn't want to restrict you guys too much, but we wanted to make it so when they come in for density, we had something to measure it against. So
What you put together, I like this. I like that there's some more teeth in it and some more guidelines. That was the problem with the last one. It was so loose, and they were
We meet
bonusing
that standard, we
40%.
get a whole 10%
Yep.
density bonus.
Yeah.
We don't
So-
really have any measurement, any objective measurement on it.
And I think this gives the planning commission and staff a guideline so they can do a fair assessment versus just this wishy-washy thing that's
well,
pretty
we were
loose.
trying to make, so a planning commission today is it's restricting the planning commission 10 years down the road. So you're kind of holding the line.
Another item in there is that if somebody comes in and they want to use some of their density bonuses on phase 3, and they want to put their park in there, and you have like 10 parks already in the city, then you could say, well, you know what, we would like you to use some of your other density bonuses and put in a different amenity.
So we
that
can
gives-
change the order
it
that
gives-
way.
Yeah, during the phases that it comes in as the MPO, gives the city council really good negotiation for what they want to see in that section.
So I have two design questions I didn't see an answer to, and maybe you can help me, but I'm putting myself in the shoes of a developer and trying to make it where I understand it. One is, so I see in paragraph, now it's J, a waiver of construction standards and design criteria. And it basically says that it's intended to provide an alternative to conventional. What about like setbacks, right? Either from the roads or back walls, property lines. Is there flexibility, or is that not intended to be flexible? All right, and then what about road widths, right? I'm looking up there at Sunriver and they've got some of these little tiny roads, but that's what the older generation wants. They don't want wide roads. They want little narrow roads because they walk them. They don't.
Well, and I think the city's got ordinances that cover the public roadways and that demand, and they have to do a traffic plan to show that the road's capable of handling the traffic for that area. If they're gonna do a private road, then we can't obligate. If it's in a public roadway, no, the city has the final say on it.
So I just use Elam Valley as an example. But I mean, when they master planned that with their walkable community, they narrow roads, but they have alleys in the back, ways of parking behind the buildings and things like that that could show, okay, so this is truly only for egress.
Yeah. Great pavers, sidewalks, rollover curb as opposed to high back curb.
Things that don't meet our normal standards and
Same
specifications.
concrete as opposed to regular concrete, a certain type of street light look. I mean, if the city wants to do that, you can get mired down in those kind of details. You do that in a development agreement by a separate set of design standards. But what ends up happening is people tend to shy away from it because the city is then responsible for maintaining those. And so
if they did a private road, we would say, that's too, if they did a small private road, they say that, the city can never take that over, it's too small. But if you guys want to keep it an HOA or whatever, have that. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, because how do you?
The problem is with that, Councilman, is, and you stated it earlier, as time goes by, personality changes on the council. People come in, the city council weakens, they take it over, and then the city is stuck with the maintenance now.
So you're thinking we should keep them? This should not allow then roads to be any narrower than what our code is.
Well, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that when you start changing your design guidelines, you can really get down in the weeds and change everything. And that's what Pete is alluding to with Elam Valley. They changed everything.
So Perkins City wanted to know, how do we change that street light? That was a one-off thing made in Boston. And not like any of our other street lights, canopies or whatever, how they look and things like that. It just is a nightmare.
It's a problem. Yeah. I see that.
Not to say though that during the process of putting the MP deal together, that the developer thought that he wanted a special look and needed some design guidelines that weren't in the city standards, he could propose those. And if everybody agreed and the city liked them, we could allow those design guidelines to be used in that MP.
I think that goes right along with like what the Lowe's had submitted. I mean, we have inside their design, there's multiple different options that they could apply
Their road
for.
cross sections
Yep.
look different than our standards and specifications we just adopted for road cross.
So, yeah, it gave us options for that.
And keep in mind, this walks you through the stages. I mean, the different aspects of it, you're gonna be requiring different things from it. So,
And I kind of like the idea of going from 40% bonus to 30. But how did you get that? Why was that just a shot in the dark? We don't like 40, so we're going to drop to 30, or is there more reason?
actually, it was a pretty heated discussion because there were some of us that some wanted higher and some wanted to leave it at 40, some wanted 20, some were talking about 50. And it was kind of, after arguing both sides of it, we ended up at 30 in the middle of taking on all the arguments. The concern with getting up that high is, you've got an R120, you give a 40% density bonus. If you had 1,000 homes on 500 acres, yeah, you put an extra 400 homes on there. That's a pretty significant hit. So I think that was what kind of drove us to go a little smaller number than the 40, but still make it allowable, making an incentive for them to do things to give infrastructure and help to the city for our future as well.
So Dan, I said I was almost done. Sorry, Joey.
And if you look at the table, it's very easy to get the difference. Or 40, very easy to get either.
What did we do? And I haven't read through it, so I apologize, but for open space, that was quite a discussion. If we had slopes that were unbuildable, if we had wetlands, if we had areas that you could not build and they just got donated to open space,
We dropped open space down to 5%. Because that's the easiest one for them to do and at the least cost to develop.
Perfect.
But you also want to give them incentives
Incentives to do it.
cluster and not use sensitive lands in their development. So it's kind of a balance.
Well, and some of those sensitive lands, you talk about that, but our hillside ordinance prohibits them anyway. So it's like, we're protecting the sensitive
Right.
lands, but where are we giving the bonus for? So,
Another small confusing thing, when SRC was coming through their preliminary comp plan, we thought it was an MPDO or a PDO. It was actually came through as a simple subdivision. So then PRUs just came off of their numbers, getting simple subdivision. That's all that happened.
and that's per the agreement that we made with Doug Westbrook.
Simple subdivision, you can have a simple subdivision within an MPDO.
Also, we would have that too. A mixed use site.
Inside of it.
Within an MPDO.
Look at that. We've had like city council training today.
You know what? If A then B and if B then C.
Probably the single biggest thing I think that the development agreement attached to the MPDO does is that it ties down the density. It allows open dialogue and discussion between the city and the developer. And as far as density bonuses, when you arrive at that number, it's memorialized in the development. Other things, ancillary things like design standards are included in the development agreement also. I think part of the problem that a lot of people have with the MPDO is they envision it all happening tomorrow. And it just doesn't happen that way. I know that the SRC situation is probably looking at a 30 to 35 year horizon. That's a long time from now. And we know, we have seen in Southern Utah in the last 10 years, how the demand for different products has changed. That's what an MPDO is. It gives the developer, as time progresses and as wants and needs change, it gives the developer the ability to adapt to those changes.
Oh, so they could come in and amend it if the demand were to change from this style to that style, they could come in and make a change.
So that's a big advantage to the developer for the MPDO along with the
The only other thing I'd bring up is just so the council's
This is
aware.
the only-
No, this is it.
You
This
said
is it.
only.
I know, but just so the council's aware, this is based off of a base zone of a half acre lot. So that's how it's calculated. So if you didn't understand where we're going, that's where the number starts from.
So if you go R112,
It doesn't work. It does, what they've done is it eliminated it. Everything's based off of R1.
So we're always comparing apples to
Yep.
apples, no matter whose development agreement comes in. So
Perfect.
your density is always going to be comparable.
We did Westbrook, Lowe's, Litchfield's all on the 20.
So-
Anything that happens in the future, MPDO.
So Litchfield's doesn't exist.
Yes.
So it's just a roadway dedication. So
That was just a development agreement. It wasn't an MPDO. You're right.
hey, we good?
yeah, I'm not asking more questions.
All right, great, thanks. Move on then to number 12, right?
Yep.
Okay. Discussion on ordinance 10-15B, plan development over the PDO zone.
If you look at that ordinance, it deletes one paragraph because right at the very beginning, as a separate chapter from MPDO, there's this concept of a PDO. But it has no standards, nothing to it, and are you using the MPDO standards for the PDO, and why would you have something different? And the planning commission just said, we don't understand and know what PDO is, just delete that section.
Well, it was almost like it was put in as a one paragraph as a placeholder. And they were gonna get to it, put the detail in behind it at some point. So we just went with where you've got the simple subdivision, the phase subdivision, the MPDOs, all the others. It just doesn't seem what good is a PDO gonna do you.
Boilerplate,
Perfect.
document in the first place. And the recommendation 5-0 that we remove it.
Yeah, I'm good. I asked too many. My
All right,
question
any other
allocation.
discussion on that? Kane, did you want to say anything? Good. Okay, we'll move on. Council reports. Mr. Sip, take it away.
All right, we have a trails meeting on Monday. We're discussing what are we discussing, Joey? I know. I was gonna pick on you now that you got the big chair.
We're just gonna try to shore up our venue.
And our donations
They're ready.
to start, yeah, for our fundraiser. So on the September 24th. I don't know, what is that? Yeah, 24th? September 24th, we have the band already lined up. We have the venue, we have the menu. We've got the menu down. What's that, Dana? Venue and the menu and the band. So I think we're doing pretty well there. Lloyd did a good job on the sewer district. Not, I mean, there's lots going on in the sewer, so if you got any questions, just call the mayor, he knows it all.
Still flows down here.
It does, unless the pump's broken and the alarm's going off. Solid waste, we're in the look for a new manager over there at the district again. We've lost our new Ben, he's gone, so we're back to not having a manager. I haven't seen plans yet from Alpha on the bridge. Have you seen signed or stamped? Okay. Still trying to get that bridge built on Westfield, but we still haven't got the plans back.
So they're probably have to mention why.
Well, yeah, because Sun River wants to run a sewer line underneath our pedestrian bridge.
Sewer and water.
Yeah. So we're having to redesign to handle the mass, and they're going to help pay for Firelight. Sun River. Oh yeah, they're paying for that and extra to help build the bridge. We're going to get a little more than that. So
I'll have to bill in separately.
yes.
Are they running that down Pond Hill Road and then under the bridge?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So
Good. You good?
yeah, other than the trail, I don't understand what we can't. Never mind.
I wish you'd stop building bridges.
I'm good. I never knew that bridge down there would be such a headache.
I don't think anybody anticipated the amount of complaints that the city would get. I think they'll go away here before too long.
Toll good.
Can the committee that you have for parks, could they get an estimate of what it would take to actually have a map of all the trails in the city? We have a lot of people that have no idea how many trails we have.
We have, that's with Trails and Parks, the same committee. We've been pushing on this fundraiser, but we'll get to some trails. We'll start putting that down.
It'd be nice to have a map,
Yeah.
and that way they just pick it up in the city office. They can see the walking trails and the trails.
We have a lot of trails planned as soon as this gets started on this west side of town.
Great.
We've got a whole bunch of trails that go
The
on.
dotted lines then for proposed and so on, yeah.
Yep.
I'd love to see it.
My note for the fundraiser is that once we get the flyer ready, we'll kind of identify what people that want to sponsor it, like they're going to keep their name on there. And if they want to donate raffle items or auction items. So if people know companies that want to donate to this, then we can get this flyer. Hopefully, that's what this first flyer is for.
Right. And also, I need to warn all council members who have to be to this party fundraiser, because you're probably gonna have a job that evening.
What day is that again?
24th
Yeah, your wife's already cleared it, so don't worry.
I don't know.
September 24th?
I've talked with Serenity Funeral Home, and they're interested in some kind of a co-sponsorship as well, so they may want to figure something. It's kind of a dying business, but
At least I had to get there. Yeah, I'm done there, sorry.
okay. Ms. Rosie.
So on the bypass road, our next meeting is tomorrow with the design team. I spoke to him several times the last week about where we stand. We're about 95% there, excluding the bridge, but the Clomar application, which is the application to the Army Corps of Engineers for approval of the bridge in the waterway, that's been submitted finally, which is good. I'm happy about that. But that takes about 6 months.
Let's make sure we include applicant on those meetings, so he knows where he needs to be in there.
I will forward that to.
Tomorrow at 3:30.
Where's it at? It's by Meets. They do it for Google Meets. It's Microsoft. Yes, and it's at 1:30 tomorrow. 1:30. And Kent, I'll forward that email to you. Then let's see. The Pond Hill Road, I spoke with Mike several times. We've spoken to all of the different landowners along there, but to get a road dedication so that they'll tie in from the parkway into, SR 17, but they're going to tie in to Westfield Road just south of the bridge. And so there's
Where the turnoff is now.
Yes, right. It'll just be a much nicer turnoff. They're going to cut into that hillside on the south side just a little bit. And that's why I was asking about the running utilities. But that's going to be their first connection. And I think, although I'm not sure, but I think they're going to propose that be their access point for construction when they start. In other words, right now the development agreement says they can't use the city roads. I think they're going to request some flexibility there so they can tie into Westfield Road. And Dan, you might know more than I do. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but the last conversation I had with him was that very.
I asked them if they would work that out with you, and they said they were working on it. But the original right now is allow it without a formal change to their development agreement. The citizens are going to review.
And I don't want us to, because I want to hear what they're offering in exchange, right? It's like.
The other thing with tying in, and I've brought up to them already, where they're coming in right by the bridge, that is the public safety nightmare. If you don't clear those trees down, so you got clear.
Both direction line of view, yeah. So
Now you get to that point.
Chainsaw.
There's going to be a lot of problems with the citizens. And so we've got to make sure that we look at every alternative we can.
I agree with you. And if anybody has any suggestions, let's forward it on to them, because that's going to be the imposition is not going to be for very long, but it will be for probably 6 months, right, until that southern bridge is approved and built. Then that's going to be a big sucking motion. Everybody in Westfield is going to be using that route, because it'll be much quicker for them to take that route to Hurricane than it is the route they're taking now.
Councilman, that's probably one situation I'm talking about right now. Pond Hill Road probably should come to staff. And it should come to staff as a discussion item, make sure that it meets our master plan, talk about site distances, talk about all those things. And then they need to prepare us like construction drawings and submit those for approval. But it seems like.
I'll mention it to them.
Yeah, it seems like this stuff is taken off and they've got engineers review and stuff. This stuff really needs to start with staff.
So I've got several engineering firms that are all working on those cats and stuff, and not overlaying with each other, so it's got to come together someplace, and probably Mike Drive us to get it together, probably a good place to be.
I'll mention to them to submit
And
ideas, concepts.
Chuck had mentioned just have them just haul all the stuff in one night, and just bring it all in, park it there, and work there, and then it's just a one-night exception that's being made to bring that material in.
One
I don't know if it's feasible. What did you?
Well, I'm sure to set up a staging area out on the racetrack and to be able to build a road is going to take more than.
Well, as
one
far as
night.
having all the equipment drive in once the road is in there.
I think the equipment's the easy part of it. I think the one with the big other comments is they get all the belly dumps and everything else in there. Even on your back, on every hour.
What? The what?
All the belly dumps, so the earth and the
all-in road base.
If you put the base, if you put the staging area out on the racetrack, then you don't have to haul all that stuff in. It's all already
The
out
road
there.
base is not gonna come from the racetrack. It's gonna have to come from the gravel pit, so.
You're gonna have all your pipe and all your stuff in.
Yep.
It's not gonna come at once, it's gonna come in phases. So,
The way I view it, it's up to them to propose something to us and then we'll review it. I'm not gonna go and, right. And they will. I mean, it's too bad Matt left, but they've been really good to, so far anyway, to work with, and they seem to be, and Matt understands, he worked for cities for so long. I think he understands
Well,
our
I think
position.
if there's a few of the cities, they don't have an NPDO, can't get us any bonuses, they're gonna come back. So I think that's.
And they probably should.
The sports complex, nothing has happened since my last report. We're still waiting on BLM. The only thing I did is I emphasized to them that they need to go find as much water as they can find and buy it up and bring their water with them. So, and I know they've been out there working on it because they've sent me several offers to buy, but you know, I just said, well, it's up to you to do what you want to do, and you're going to roll the dice somewhat. They found a bunch of water for sale, very expensive. That was well water up on Pine Valley Mountain, and so one of the questions they're asking is whether that's going to be something that they could use. Could they change the point of diversion? Is there something they could do? And I told them I would look into it and get back to them, but I haven't even begun. My next call was to call Heath Nazardi. What did you think? And is it something we should mess with, or do we just entirely put it onto their hands and then you guys figure it
Yeah, I mean, that's something where they're gonna need some expertise from some water engineers and a lot of consultation with the state division, state engineer's office, because that's a pretty far pull, and whether they think that the water is coming from the same drainage or sub-drainage and all those different aspects of it. It'd be really hard to say because I'm not a hydrology expert.
Two other things. The tiny cabin thing, I am deeply concerned about the way it's going to look. I really am concerned about it. And I'm hopeful that we can think of ways to encourage their landscaping to be much more mature and attractive. I mean, what I really fear, and we've seen it around in other places, is they come in with these, 5-gallon bucket trees that are pencil thick, and then they hang them up, or put them in the ground and try to put hangers on them to hold them up, and for the next 10 years, it looks horrible out there. And where that is our face, I'm really concerned about it. So I'd like us to look closely at that.
I'm glad you brought that up. At the last planning commission meeting, 12 o'clock on that day, they brought to me in Hurricane a new concept plan on the building, a new rendering drawing, to make a change from the cabin style that we seem to have to a more modern. And
More like what you see in the Virgin.
right, before you cross the bridge. And the planning commission took exception, number one, to having that in the plans brought on us. Number two, they basically said that, we don't think this fits the look of the cabin thing. So I made express statements that the developers knew that that was the plan that we were approving. The cabin.
So one of the things was that they had to rescind that one. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to wait a month.
Delay, right.
To do that, so they said, no, we're gonna stay with the log cabin. They didn't want to delay it.
That'll still come back to you guys, right, as the commercial. So it's done. So it has to be the commercial, or the cabin. Okay, perfect.
And at your next business meeting, you're going to approve it. So then all I have to do is have a pre-construction meeting and then basically on to it. But it did raise another question that I am concerned about from the building inspection standpoint. That's how I'm concerned Reeves has made the statement that he was gonna build these off-site. Well, if he builds these off-site and just transports them in and sets them down, we really don't know how they're built. And I think we have a public responsibility to kind of see, you know, whether or not he pays a third-party inspector to inspect them whether they're getting built, put some kind of a sticker on them or
A stamp or some form saying, yeah, they've been passed off.
Well,
Grading, shear, electrical, plumbing, they're gonna have to do that.
Well, we probably need to have some involvement with that inspector too.
So that company, Zion Tiny Homes, I didn't even know, so I met a guy that's bought homes from them and they build them over in St. George, is my understanding. So I think we'd need to figure out what that is. So he's partners with them. So I would guess that he's going, and if you look on title, they're titled with Jerry on that as well. So anyways, I just wonder how we would do that if they're being built commercially out of town and then brought in, like a modular. How do we inspect a modular home when it comes in?
they have a HUD sticker.
So
They have new federal stamp. So that's easy.
Oh, yeah. We actually started discussing this, and it was something that Lance Goodberg brought up that Cedar City is having trouble with the ones like we escalated.
Yes.
And we're looking at whether we could address something where we adopt, it has to have the federal standards if it's built off-site, you know, under what type of requirements and everything are. We would prefer they be built on site so our inspector can inspect them. And one thing to set your, not totally at ease, but on the public view of what's going on, I'm going to call it the Williams ordinance. When we put the commercial design standards in, this development was actually what drove having those done. So we hit them on the frontage. They can't have more than so much vehicle frontage on it. The visibility of it, some of it's got to be raised elevation. So that's all come into play then as well. So the cosmetics aspect.
Didn't we talk about having them constructed and not put any drywall, interior walls up until the inspection was done here?
That's part of the thing we were talking about, just as a discussion item. That wasn't with them. So.
No, it wasn't with them, it was with us, but the
Right.
question is, when it comes to the city council, we need to be prepared to make a decision as to
Well, I think
what
that was
conditions we're gonna have.
one thing Mike brought up. I think if we build them off-site, is do everything except for the sheeting, so that all the electrical and plumbing could be inspected on site here. Yeah. Right. But that's something we'd have to get into place.
Keeping in line with that, one of the things we've discussed several times in city council meeting is people who keep bringing us plans and they give us little things like that thing up on the wall there with little scratchings on a piece of paper. Can't we get an artistic rendition of what this thing is supposed to look like, you know, color of the trees, 3D, that type of thing, so we can have a much better picture of what we're approving and then hold them to that picture. So if we want to have bushier trees or more trees or have water here or grass here, we actually see what we're approving. Right now, we just get hen scratching and somebody draws a little house in here and says what the house is going to look like. But it's not. It's not what we've got. And
There's elevation plans in that show the building, that show the cabin, that show that stuff.
There's not a landscaping.
Oh,
There's not a
they're
three-dimensional
just,
landscape.
yeah, they're just elevations, you know, it's just drafting.
And I think they're gonna come back and try to change the exterior and take the
Well-
log work away. I think they're gonna try to do that.
Well, I think you put try on that, because I think you can open up what we approved.
Logs right up to it, log on.
Well, that was the original one, and, you know, without having any idea what they were talking about in the other ones. So,
Rather than rendering actually.
Better than teepees.
well, I don't know, I mean.
I don't really care if they're log cabins, to be honest with you. If they've got to reapply, then they got to reapply.
Is this a discussion we should be having in this part of the meeting?
No.
No, it's not. It's a report part of the meeting. So we,
Then the last item had to do with, I had another conversation and I've got another one coming up, well, not planned, with Sapp Brothers Travel Center.
And they are very interested in putting a travel center right next to this development out there at Anderson Junction. They're very excited. I spoke with the CEO and the CFO, and they really want to make that happen. Now, it's not, what's that? So they're looking at buying all the land they can buy there, right surrounding this tiny cabins property.
To the east,
They're looking at all of it. They've had conversations
No.
with
Anderson's?
No, same side. This is, it's the bodega property.
Oh,
yeah, and then right along the frontage road there, where it's going to be rerouted. Yeah, and you know, they've got a really nice facility. They want to put all of the restaurants and amenities for the vehicles closer to SR 17, and then they want to put the truck stop portion in the very back, right next to the frontage road or I-15. But I haven't seen any drawings. They are just talking about it. They are, you know, at first when I heard the truck stop, I wasn't excited about it, but when I started learning more about Sapp Brothers, I thought, well, if there's going to be that type of facility, the Sapp Brothers is the way we want to go. That's a really nice travel center.
Center located in the light area.
yeah. Revenue.
Yes, right.
So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully they'll do it. I think they're a good option, but we'll see.
Next to the freeway, that's where that meets.
Right there, yep.
Where is he going?
Just put a Starbucks in there. That's all I have. Thank you.
So Mayor, I have, Justin, we're working on, part of the Tocqueville Parkway is an active transportation plan. We're working with UDOT to try to figure out how that gets incorporated, bike path for active transportation, just so you know we're looking at how that can be phased in the first phase versus waiting till the end. So the council's away, our staff has received this on June 10th at 6. We're having a meeting here at the City Hall. It's in regards to Anderson Junction and the water users out there. The water district has been funding and taking care of that well and that private system for years. And the water district sent a letter, it was CC'd into here, so it's been seen that they no longer want to do that. They want to stop maintaining that. And the goal of this meeting is to encourage everybody in Anderson Junction to get onto our system that's already in place. They've already paid for it. They need to get on board and use it. So that'll be here on June 10th. You're all welcome to attend that meeting for that discussion.
What time is that again?
At 6 p.m.
We're talking,
It's about 13 residents.
fees to sign up or to
Nope.
hook up?
No, they've already paid it. They paid for the SID.
It's physical cost of connecting.
So we will set a setter on their side. That would be part of their SID agreement. They have to connect to it.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. And when we did the SID, they just never connected. So we said they didn't want to do it, but they joined. We will incur some costs. The water, we have to run a water line. There's a quote in here somewhere. I think it's around $165,000. The water district's going to help us with that once we figure out how all of these pieces work together. So we'll have that.
That's probably good.
Yep, it absolutely should be to that because you're going to get a lot of questions on it. So that's on June 10th.
And you'll be the shield for.
Yes. Yes, it'll be fun for you. Turning lanes, Ken actually called me on turning lanes. Those are with Tracy Munson at UDOT right now. They're in design. So we'll see those back on Shoya. Yeah. So we'll see those back, I would guess, within the next 30 days for approval. And then we'll move forward with that. And then, Mayor, I have 2 items about property acquisition that I need to discuss with the council in a closed session.
Ty, following up something you and I were working on, striping on the roads.
Mm-hmm.
It's been delayed.
Yeah, because of paint.
Paint.
Yeah, they're out. What, Lance, like 60 days? It was a while.
It was a while before they were gonna get in there way behind. The
Yeah,
paint's
and
all
I just told
parked in the
Lance we're
harbor
good.
off of California.
The owner of Straight Stripe was over a week ago and I talked to him, so they're not checking it.
So Chuck, thank you for bringing that up. The council approved that we're going to move forward, but they have delayed it just because of materials. And And that's Mayor, that's all I have.
I'm with Ty, we have some property discussions.
Nothing new because we covered the cemetery. It's in what's coming up on the 4th of July. I do have a question. If I'm supposed to be the emergency management guy for the city council, do we have a complete emergency management plan for the city? And if so,
church.
No.
Did I?
But the other question I've got is, when things happen here, shouldn't there be, you know, if I'm supposed to be emergency management guy, is there a way I can get tied into what's going on? We've had 2 fatal accidents on the 17th and some big fires last year and so forth, and we've had several fires this year. So,
So I had
if
that.
you guys have questions, you should be able to come to somebody and say what happened.
So I had that responsibility for a while, and the Pope, why am I? Dave Pope
Okay.
is actually
the Pope.
listed as, Dave Pope was listed as the city's point of contact. And if you're willing to take that, I would just get with Dave, get everything transferred over. And he had some certifications and stuff that he had to obtain.
Certified?
Yep. So that would be a wonderful thing if you could do that. But Dave Pope was the one who I would get with to start driving that.
You know, I'll take that because you already gave it to me.
I'm looking at a resume here from somebody that says they're an emergency planner for the state of Utah's division. Is that you? Is that your resume I'm looking at right now?
Oh, good.
What's the name on that? Kent?
Kent Page?
That might be a good asset for you.
Yeah, maybe we ought to tap into that as well.
Hat number 17, 18, what is it now?
Are you volunteering, Kent? You're volunteered.
Good answer. Anything else, Chuck? Okay, you took care of your stuff already. You attended the DTEC meeting today?
Yes.
Is there anything we need to know that came out of that?
With Kate, UDOT, because he has a question about funding for the bypass road, so.
Don't tell me.
And he was supposed to send me some questions, so.
Cade Roberts.
Yes.
I visit with Cade tomorrow. So yeah, we'll have that handled. But I'll have him send you whatever it is so you get the answers as well. It'll be perfect.
Anything else we need to bring up in open session?
I have a question on the 1:30 meeting that's going to be tomorrow on the design team. And you said it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a conference call. How many of us can sit in, or is it considered a meeting if we sit on it, just sit in on something that's being discussed?
Two counts, two, yeah.
Okay.
Just 2.
Just 2.
So I'm usually on there, and about half the time you are.
I'm gonna be, I'll
Are
be
you
there.
gonna be on it tomorrow? Because there's a bunch that they're waiting on Ty to respond to. So I'd highly recommend it. But if you're not going to, then you better give me a
Why
good
don't you
checklist.
just back that bus back up again? They don't need to take any accountability for
No,
not
no.
doing it.
But if you want to go in place of me, Chuck, I'll be glad to bow out. I mean, you know, that if it's something you want to observe.
I'll catch up with you because I won't be here tomorrow. So.
Okay.
All right, I would,
Mayor, a motion that we close the. Yeah, he's looking for a motion. Right?
oh, yeah. By way of announcement, events coming up, Intermountain Healthcare is announcing a Hurricane Campus. This is the St. George Regional Health Hospital campus. There's 3 campuses now. There's the one on River Road next to the big hospital, and then there's the old hospital. That is the other campus, and this will be, I think, the 3rd campus that they put in. So Hurricane's getting a new hospital, basically. Groundbreaking is June 16th at 8 a.m. out at the Hurricane Valley Clinic, where the clinic is now. They're just going to basically expand that considerably. That's all I have.
Mayor, a motion that we go out of this meeting and do a closed meeting for the discussion of acquisition of real property.
Second the motion, Mayor.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. We will adjourn. No, we won't. We will then go out of this meeting at 8:10 and we will go back into closed session momentarily. Can I talk to you just for a second?
Yeah.